Let's look at adding posts to your blog. This is what the cover of the 2010 theme looks like in WordPress, and let's just see where the post actually lives in this inside of the blog. You see the post here is the tour of Western Ireland, so it's there to the left, and it takes up most of the left-hand part of the screen in this setting. The title of the blog is up at the top, and the tagline, the header, and then over to the right you see all the widgets, and widgets help people find content and other things. There's so many different widgets you can pick from. But one widget I want to concentrate on is the subscribe to post. You see the little orange icon there to the right, which is the way that readers would subscribe to the feed. Just below that is subscribe by email. These are very important to have in prominent places. There are people that don't understand feeds and they do want to subscribe to blogs. So having the subscribe by email feature is important. But that icon is also important to have in a prominent place. All blogs from WordPress or Blogger automatically generate feeds. But it's amazing how many bloggers don't reveal that to the reader. And if you want people to continue to read your content, you want to make it easy for them to subscribe. So put this in a prominent place, not buried at the bottom of the blog, or, worse yet, not having it at all. Having that icon that says you can subscribe to my posts tells the reader that is looking for it where it is. But it's also a reminder to other readers that you can, in fact, subscribe to the content in this blog. So make that easy. And before crafting your posts, you want to think to yourself, how do people find my blog? Your content will determine how many people opt to come back to your blog. If people like what you write and are interested in the niche, they'll want to come back. So remember that people will find your blog in search engines, which is the obvious place. People search for something and they find it. That will bring people to your blog. But if your content is good and it is rich, other people will link to your blog. And that's another way people find your blog, is in like niches, other blogs that have a link to your site, or other blogs that have content inside their posts that is linked to your site. And then the third way people say, I'd like to come back to this blog, this actually is something besides the post I'm reading, is when they find a post, they come to they read your post and they say, wow, I wonder if there's more like this. Wow, this is a whole blog on this content. And then they can go and subscribe to it either by feed or by email. So keep that in mind. When you're writing a post, there's 5 elements to consider. The title, having an image, putting headings in your post, and then of course the text and content, and then tags. Most bloggers are interested in the text. When they sit down to write a post, their focus is the text of the content that they're putting into the post. However, the most important thing about a post is the title. And that's because the title will determine by about 80% whether or not that post is ever read. So people first come to the title. It's like a doorway. And post titles are just like the 3 doorways here. They can be shabby or uninteresting, not drawing anybody in. I've actually seen a blog post title, my next blog post, or this blog post about. So that is not going to draw a reader to your content. The other way people write headlines often is exactly the opposite. They're almost too cerebral or academic. They don't invite a person in. They say maybe this content here is so full of knowledge and intellectual academic writing that you have to be really smart to read it. I see that a lot too, and I just pass it by. I want a doorway that says you're welcome here. We care about how we do things. It's a clean environment. It's a rich environment. You're going to find something inside here that's going to give you an experience where you'll be better off than having not entered. So a post title should be a doorway that says, come on in. You're going to be glad you came. You're going to benefit. You're going to be welcome. You're going to gain something for having come in here. That's what a title should do. It should draw someone in to the content of your post. Titles should grab attention, and they should have instant impact. As soon as you read them, you should say, wow, what's that about? Titles can indicate that this is a hot issue or that the content inside the blog is going to solve a problem. Titles should be simple and short, probably no more than 60 characters. After a while, I think after 80 characters, Google just cuts them off in the search engine. So be conscious of the length of the title. This title here, Vacation of Many Cars with Teens from Hell, that's about as long as a title should get. And that title got me a lot of attention. I noticed that people who searched for this blog post, when I looked at the Google Analytics, found it by typing in vacations with teens. So having the key words in that title drew a lot of people to it. A title should make you want more. Say, wow, what is that post about? That's an interesting title. Titles equal headlines. So if you think about a headline in a newspaper being the very thing that will draw the reader to read the content, it's the same way in blog posts. David Ogilvy, who was once known as the father of advertising, is famous for saying, on the average, 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy. When you've written your headline, you've spent 80 cents of your dollar. And this is a very good post by Chris Brogan about how to write magnetic headlines. It's definitely worth a read. But if you scan those 11 headlines towards the bottom of that post, you can see the difference an interesting headline makes. The Cheater's Guide to Writing Great Headlines. Now that sparks my interest, or 9 proven headline formulas that will sell like crazy, or the art of writing great Twitter headlines. So that's worth a read on your own to see what he says about writing headlines. Besides the headline, an image is important to have embedded in a post. And lots of people forget this. They think I'm not writing about a person, or I don't have an image of this. But having the image in the post adds depth. And it's another way that people are drawn in. It is something that identifies the content of your post, that further explains it and makes people wanting more. So look for an image to add, and remember that when you're adding images, you can't just go and take any picture off the internet. All images and graphics are copywritten by the people who created them as soon as they create them. So you need to ask for permission if you're using someone else's content, or you need to create your own. Headings are another little secret that people don't realize are so effective in a blog post. And you can see in this blog post that our Facebook and Twitter moving you forward is the title, but then the headlines are in bold beneath that. Headlines break up the text, make it easier to scan. If you add the H1, H2, or H3 tag, they also help in search engine optimization. They give the post a balanced look, and they help people skim through. We have become a nation of skimmers. So titles help people navigate through the content and encourage people to read the content more than just a big block of text. The text and content, of course, is what will make you have continuous reading. People will come back if they feel like you're somebody that writes good content that offers them something like a way to solve a problem or special interest. But the context, when you are crafting the content of the post, you want to keep in mind that the first paragraph or the first couple of sentences are going to determine whether or not people read further. So you don't want to be literary here and start with your introduction that eventually leads to the theme. You want to make the biggest, most powerful punch in the first 2 sentences. It should say, this is what this post is about. This is what you're going to find in the rest of it. Sort of like a journalist does with the who, what, when, where, and why. Your post should only be 500 to 700 words, because that's about how much people want to consume in one read. Paragraphs should be short, lots of white space. Hit the return key about every 3 sentences and give a little break in the way the content is listed. You can also break up the content with images. Content in a blog post should be conversational. It should be more informal, and it should serve the reader. The reader should be able to walk away or leave the post being better off than when they first got there. That way they will come back. And then lastly, it's very important that posts are written tightly, that words are weighed, and extraneous sentences and words are eliminated. So writing tight is very important. Then the last thing are the tags and the categories. And people have difficulty understanding the difference between tags and categories. But tags identify content in the post. They're keywords or short phrases that say, this is what's in the post. You know, if you have a post that is about St. Declan in the monastic site called Ardmore in County Waterford, you know, all of those could be tags: St. Declan, Ardmore, County Waterford, monastic site. And they help with searching those topics. But more importantly, at the end of your post, when someone looks at the tags, it can tell them that there are other posts there could possibly be other posts in your blogs with that tag. So if you're very interested in Ardmore or monastic sites, you could click that tag and it would take you to other posts in the blog that have that tag. So it does create a way for people to find your content. Categories, on the other hand, are just broad, broad categories that are typically based on the niches that you serve or the customer profiles. So they're much more broad, and you don't want to have a bunch of these. You don't want to have more than 5, 6, or 7. There are people that will write a post in their blog and they'll say, well, now what category does this go in? Oh, it doesn't really fit in any of these, so I'll make a new one. And then before long, you know, they have a dozen or 2 dozen categories, and that isn't helpful to the reader. A category is the way that breaks up your sub-niches. So your blog isn't a niche, but it will have several sub-niches, and categories are usually the way to identify those. Categories are helpful because some people may be coming to your blog because they're only interested in one of your sub-niches. You know, so they're very interested in monastic sites, but they're not interested in the saints, and they're not interested in pilgrimages, and they're not really interested in, stone circles. So that sub-niche is important to them. Then monastic sites, being a category, is one where when they read the blog post they like, they can look and say, what are the other posts that are in this sub-niche that I'm very interested in? So again, it serves as a way to categorize the content so people can come back and find the content they like. When you're creating the categories, you go to the dashboard, you go to the posts, and then categories are an option in the posts, and you just create the categories at the beginning of setting up your blog. Identify your sub-niches, create the categories, and try your best to stick to them. And that's about it. The next we'll look at how you actually craft the content inside the post. So for more information on this, you can go to www.wisecrack.com.